Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark, DJ Solitaire here with episode 76 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I share in every episode one of my favorite tracks from the Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement of the 1990s. We are still in the 96 to 97 season. We're doing a lot of tracks from this season. It was a really pivotal time in the scene with more and more labels and artists becoming active, lots of changes in the flavors of music and production techniques and so on and so forth. So I was living in London starting in September 96. I stayed through till February 98. And there were just so many epic, incredibly groundbreaking tracks that were issued at this time. And this is one of them. This is a track that really is one that I think got some of the most, always the most ecstatic feedback from the crowd. I've said before that the London crowds, for me, were a little bit less overtly expressive than what I found in Japan. In Japan, people were really going for it. They were cheering. They were really hands in the air and so on and so forth. A little less so in London. And by a little less so, I mean a lot less so. But I've named already that Panic in Paradise by Extreme was one where inevitably people were cheering and whooping and hollering. This one is another track that, again, every single time people went wild, and they still do. And the thing that's really fun with this is I hated it the first time I heard it. I was just not really into it because it wasn't a track that had that cyber extraterrestrial kind of sound that I was really after. I was really, my imprinting from the scene came, with a particular flavor. And I think it's the same for everybody. We all approach the scene with our own musical backgrounds and we come in, and that first impression that we get sticks with us. And of course, we have other subsequent impressions that form how it is that we see and hear the music and, our perspectives. And one of the things that I've spoken to with a lot of the earlier music is that by having synthesized sounds, you didn't have an image of a particular instrument that was being played. And so it took you out of your normal terrestrial framework and put you in direct contact with the music. And this one, because it's got a pretty heavy rock-like guitar in it, uh, it was like, well, this is just kind of a bit rock and roll. Where's the cyber? Where's the psychedelic and all of that? And of course, I did grow to love it, including a month later when Tsuyoshi played this track. A month later, so I'm saying it was released in April 97. A month later was May 97. And I had quite a month that month hearing Tsuyoshi play on three different continents and three different weekends. There's a lot of traveling. But there was an incredible party at Mount Fuji put on by Return to the Source. And Tsuyoshi played this track at probably about 4:30 in the morning when the sun was just starting to come up, and there's Mount Fuji on the left side of us. There's a slope, there was this teepee where the DJ was, and we were above the clouds. And I mean, if you're gonna play as a child, I could walk on the ceiling at any time. We're like above the clouds. It was beyond magical. And I was like, okay, I am sold on this track. But the first time I heard it, I was at DJ Purple's place, either soon after it came out or before it came out, because he was a DJ with Dragonfly. He had pre-release items. And I remember looking at the artwork, the cover, which was kind of cool. And Blue Room owner and manager Simon Gahari sent me a text. We were just chatting about this, and he said, "Oh, one of my favorite releases on Blue Room, and one of my first bits of Adobe Illustrator, taking a pre-designed logo and making it into a cover with my favorite fluoro orange at the time." The track was huge, and the track was and still is huge. And the Delta would later just completely blow everybody into another dimension, not just with this track, but with the Stranded remix by Johan coming up in the next season, and also Traveling at the Speed of Thought coming up in the next season. Oh boy, do I have stories about both of those. But so the Delta is a side project of Extreme in a sense, because we've got Marcus from Extreme, Marcus Michael, together with Noosphere. So Eberhard Schultz and Niels Pachen. And the track was made, I just got it confirmed, late 96 at Extreme Studio. This is a quote that I received. Thank you very much to Alex Voschke. And something that's important is it was this was the beginning of a time when computer plugins started to appear more. And so we started hearing more of this kind of, there was a shift in production. And I know at the time as well, something that everybody was asking, and this question actually came up when I was interviewing Quirk, and we were talking about production. And Tim Healy was like, "How does Extreme get their bass? This is one of the great mysteries of mankind." I later heard it was microwave, but anyway, there we go. So I was over at Purple's place. He's like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever," and he hands me this, orange record, and I put it on, and I was like, "I don't know about that." And then my perspective, of course, did change. That same listening session was the first time I also heard an incredible track of a very different sort that'll be covering in an episode quite soon. So there we go. So this is an incredible track. The title, As a Child I Could Walk on the Ceiling, there's a spoken sample that comes from a documentary about what was then called schizophrenia, right? Bipolar disorder and so on. It's called Dialogues with Mad Women by Ali Light, in which there's 7 or 8, I believe, women with mental illness who are sharing their experiences. And so the sample comes from that.
As a child, I could walk on the ceilings. I'd butterfly up on the walls, and I'd really have the sense of actually going up on the wall and then on the ceiling, walking, and a parent would come in and I'd say hello to them from the ceiling.
I was always confused by the use of the word butterfly, because she's like, did she have butterflies up on the wall, or she's using it as a verb? And it sounds like she's using it as a verb. I would butterfly up on the walls, like I would be like a butterfly going on the walls. So it's just all kind of a bizarre sample, but holy moly, it really packs a punch. The whole track is so powerful. And yes, it's got a very rock-like feel to it. I've sort of started terming this kind of thing as cyber rock, because there is a cyberdelic, psychedelic kind of futuristic sound to it, where it's got this rock-like element, but also has that psychedelic thing. Wasn't quite what I was looking for at the time. Now I can really appreciate it. In previous years in Japan, I remember that sort of rock-like sound really going over well, particularly Juno Reactor's Loyalizer remix, Fatima Mansions. But this one, again, I think a lot of people maybe came from rock backgrounds and then got into psychedelic trance, into the Goa, then into psychedelic trance. And so this sound probably struck a chord, major or minor or whatever, with folks who, that sound of the guitar really, they had some affinity with. So let's get started listening to this incredible track by the Delta. As a Child I Could Walk on the Ceiling. This really gnarly, some of this sort of growling sound, very evocative, very raspy, and then so sort of like this weird breath. And of course, you're usually not going to hear that from the DJ, right? And then this starts coming in. We start hearing the kick. So it's, again, interesting in terms of structure, right? How we just hear the kick start, it's faded coming in. And then that bass line. and that chunky chugga chugga extreme style and new sphere style as well, bassline, that are sort of, you know, drum loop echo, and then the way that echo feeds into that percussive element, which also has a harmonic element to it. And so there's something really seductive about that rhythm, and then there's a sudden break that just tears through the whole fabric, Again, the rhythm is part of it. It's just that simple one note. And it, you know, I've talked before about Morse code messaging and so on, right? And it's just really like this insistence of this one note, this exclamatory, celebratory, anguished expression. A lot of anguish here. And then this chorus, this slide. And we'd start hearing a lot of this from the Delta. And then that sort of those spacey breath sounds. I love that sort of the way these voices fade out. That harmony's being doubled now. Now we're getting a lot of really spacey sounds. Again, you know, on first listen I couldn't really appreciate that, and now I can hear sort of all these other layers. Just the hypnotic bass line. That echo. Again, that insistent rhythm with that hypnotic bass line. Then you get that chugga chugga. Brilliant storytelling here. Now we're gonna get this amazing sound here. Again, this does take on the kind of like that emergency signal beaming out to space, or that we're tuning into from outer space. It's so simple, right? One note. And that crash. Again, notice how the breaks are so organic. Right? It's all content that we've heard. So it's all part of a story. Slide. And that sound just hammering around in your head. Ooh. A little bit more emotion here with those strings. An extra note up there, and then that slide, and then the sample.
As a child, I could walk on the ceiling. I'd butterfly up on the wall.
The way it comes in, like, it's powerful, but it's also subtle. It's not like with a massive bang. And the crowd goes wild. I love especially that little gating effect and the way it fades. You can really feel in the engineering on this is incredible, but that clack of that. they go wild every time. And it's so emotional, so expressive. I mean, just as I've named before, the combination of emotions, right? The anguish and the pain, and, the depth. And again, think back to some of the extreme tracks from this time. We're going to hear some of these sounds coming up in some of their brilliant productions. Rhythm is really part of it, right? All the different sounds, the different frequencies they're on, as well as all the different rhythms that we have happening. They really have an impact on the how it is that what it is that you start feeling. Combination of that cyber electro guitar with those voices is a really interesting combination of organic and electronic. These notes, so few notes that, boy, the sequence. I mean, wow. So yeah, I love the track now. Again, it's almost comical that I was like, my first impression of that was not a positive one. But again, I was really into that cyber sound. I did like, as you know, I mean, the first video I chose in the series was Stellium, where it's got that cyber electric kind of guitar sound with that riff, but it sounds less like a guitar than this actual one. But um, such a really deep, deep track. I'm sure that the spoken sample and the source of that sample coming from someone who, who's who's bridging with reality from those experiences she was talking about as a child, uh, really ties in with the frame of mind of where are we in that party vibe and where we're in an environment that's cultivating different ways of looking at reality. I'm sure that voice being beamed out on a huge system together with those creative sounds and patterns really that's a big part of the incredible long-lasting impact of this track. It's nearly 30 years that this track has been around. It's absolutely mind-blowing still that this music that was produced that many decades ago is still so cutting edge, so powerful, so ahead of the curve of what it is that is often being produced now. So hats off, gentlemen. Absolutely brilliant production by the Delta. Those great three brilliant musicians. I can't wait to share. Oh boy, it's going to be one of those pull up a chair and sit down and tune in for the story when we get to traveling at the speed of thought. Uh, but I started, actually just listening here while filming, I started really noticing more, what's coming in their future sounds as you listen to choral, orchestral sort of atmosphere. Just some absolutely inspired, otherworldly, other dimensional music. So I will leave you now with the entire production that you can listen to without my commentary. Listen to, if I can add this in now, just the layering. and the combination of those more human sounds of the voices with some of those rhythmic elements and how they all tie together. I think it's absolute genius. So here we are, Mark DJ Solitaire signing off from episode 76 of Retro Goa Explorations, and leaving you now with the deltas. As a child, I could walk on the ceiling.
child, I could walk on the ceiling. I'd butterfly up on the walls. As a child, I could walk on the ceiling.